right, Filthy Five time. Tonight we are going to break down the 154 division, the junior middleweight or super welterweight as the boxing people call it. Point systems work. Number one gets 10 points. Number two gets 9 points. So on down the line. So we get number 10 spot gets 1 point. I had my list. James had a list. Raider Live had a list. We combined our lists together. Point totals were distributed. And we'll move into our number 5 spot. James, who do we have at number 5 for the junior middleweight division?
All right. At number 5 in the junior middleweight at 154, we have Jarrett Hurd with 18 points. This was actually a surprise to me. I'll tell you that right now. But Raider Live had Jarrett Hurd at number 5. I had Jarrett Hurd at number 8. And Rich, you had Jarrett Hurd at number 2. And I forgot about that until right now. So we are going to pass it to you. Why do you believe Jarrett Hurd is the number 2 contender at 154?
Yeah, so I have to look at this 154 division and just kind of guess who I think would win in a fight. And this one was tough because Jarrett Hurd's last fight was on that Mayweather undercard, the Mayweather-Paul undercard. And he lost to Luis Arias. Keep in mind, that fight not only was at 160, where Jarrett Hurd may have not felt comfortable, but it was also in the rain. I think part of the reason why he lost that fight, when you have to watch your own footing because you might slip and fall and tear your Achilles or something, you're going to fight more cautiously. Yes, I mean, Luis Arias won. He for sure won. There was no judging issues in this fight. He deserved to win that. But had that fight been on regular padding or something else, now I'm throwing excuses, but I think maybe he doesn't belong at 160. Maybe he belongs at 154. And if I look at this 154 list, he's already beaten Erislandy Lara. He's beaten Austin Trout. He's beaten Tony Harrison. Those are a few of the biggest names in this division. I put him at number 2 because he just has the best resume, who's not number 1.
Interesting. I did not know that Arias fight was in the rain. That was outside?
It was outside and it was raining and they kept on cleaning up the corners and stuff. It was a disaster. It's too bad that had to happen. They shouldn't be having fights in Southern California. Never rains there. Come to Minnesota. Never rains here. So if you're going to have the fight outside, go where there's a drought. Go to Phoenix, go somewhere. But I don't know where that fight was, but they shouldn't have outdoor boxing if there's rain in the forecast.
Fair enough. Yeah, that's interesting. It makes some good points. Definitely some good points. Raider probably agreed with you a little more than I did. Obviously having him up at 5. I put him at 8 because I think that the guys above him either beat him or give him enough trouble to beat him. I just him and another guy in this division, I think they're past it for me. So that's why I have Hurd at 8. Obviously you guys bumped it up as far as that goes. He's definitely not a bad fighter by any means. 26-2 with 16 knockouts. I don't know if he has the same stuff, but I might have to change my rankings a little bit because I did not realize the Arias fight was in the rain. Because I know there was some controversy as far as that goes, but either way, that's what we have at number 5 is Jarrett Hurd with 18 points.
All right, so let's, I guess, move on to number 4 here. James, who as a collective group do we have at number 4?
So
why do you have that smile on your face before I say that? I can't wait.
It's just my face. It's just okay. I'm just happy to do the Filthy 5, right?
Sweet, I'll drink to that.
So at number 4, our general consensus pick is actually with 20 points, Erislandy Lara. So the guy that you just said beat Hurd, or lost to Hurd. Raider had him at number 4. I also had Lara at number 4, and you had him at number 6. So number 5. My bad. Sorry about that. So just one spot down. Since Raider's not here for me to pass to him, I'm going to talk about Erislandy Lara. I think that he's definitely this top 5 division, man. He's been around forever. It seems like he's been around forever, right?
Yeah.
And he's always top talent. He's always, at least for me, he's always top talent. He only has 3 losses. He's 28-3. He just, it's kind of a bummer because he had, back in the day, he was touted as such a prospect, like the prospect for a long time. And he was still, I mean, he's, like I said, he's still a good fighter, man. I don't have any issues with him being up this high. If we look at the resume, that makes it a little bit different for sure. But I don't think he's done. He's lost to Hurd. He's drew against Castano. It seems like everybody draws against Castano. Split decision loss to Alvarez. So I think Lara deserves to be in the top 5. I've got him that high for that reason. But Rich, why did you have Lara the lowest of all of us?
Yeah, I look at this list and, like, don't get me wrong, this 154 division is pretty deep. I mean, I could probably go 15 deep in this division. It's a really healthy division right now. And to have Lara at number 5, given his age and his awkward southpaw Cuban, I believe he's a southpaw, but he's got that Cuban style where it's super defensive. In general terms, a boring fighter. This guy is hard to beat. I don't think he has the power some of these other guys in this division have, but he could possibly have the best skills out of everyone in this division. I think he can beat everyone here on points. Now, can he knock anyone out? The guys below him, yeah, I think he can not only beat them on points, but he can knock them guys out. The guys I had ahead of him, I think they win because they can knock Lara out. I don't even know if Lara's been knocked out in his career, but power is what has him lacking from my perspective. And had he had more power, then maybe he moves up. But even speaking of moving up, I'm pretty sure we'll be ranking him at middleweight. He'll be moving up to middleweight sometime in 2022. Anything you want to add before we move to number 3?
Do you think he's going to move up still? You think he's got a chance to move up? I mean, I looked up his age because I forgot. I knew he was old. He's 38 years old right now. Yeah. You think he still has stuff? I mean, okay, Cuban, right? Yeah. Guillermo Rigondeaux, what's up? Yeah. You know what I mean? I think they play forever. It seems like they're eternal. Do you think he has enough left in the tank, especially being the style of fighter that he is, to move up in weight for one last hurrah?
Well, for one thing, because he's that defensive southpaw fighter, his body probably hasn't taken the beating that other fighters younger than him have taken. So for one, I think he still has a few miles left. What was the saying I used? Enough oil in the engine? I said something like about a year ago. He has enough oil in the engine, or something stupid. But
he has gas left in the tank.
Yeah, okay, well, he has that too. He has that too. Here's the thing. He hasn't been taking a beating. Yeah, he's 38 years old, but there's a difference between being a 38-year-old Lara and being like a 29-year-old, somebody who just puts their head and gets smashed and has cuts all over their face. He does not have that. Now, as far as moving up to 160, which I think is what you're really asking here, a 38-year-old moving up to 160, again, I think it's one of those things where God is telling him he can't make weight anymore, or Father Time is telling him you can't make weight. You have to move up. And I don't think he's failing at 154, but I think he can move up to 160, bring that style with him, and his body won't take the punishment. Now, who could he fight at 160? I don't know, but I believe there are already some sites that have him ranked as a 160 fighter. So just like Hurd, who we will probably be talking about him at 160 next year, I think Lara will be talking about him at 160 as well. Right on. Should we move on to number 3?
Let's do it.
All right, let's go. Who do you got? Who do we have collectively at number 3 in this filthy 5 junior middleweight division?
All right. At number 3, we have the Hammer, Erickson Lubin, with 24 points. Not a big surprise here. Raider Live had Erickson Lubin at number 3. I had Erickson Lubin at number 3. And Rich had Erickson Lubin at, you guessed it, number 3. So where does that put him on the list? Number 3. First consensus, you know what? Might as well have a social real quick. Let's have a beer. Perfect time to crack it.
If Raider Live's watching, I don't like him. No, I think he's nailed this list better than both of us right now. Cheers to you, Raider Live. And to you, Jimmy James.
All right. So since we all have a tie across the board, we'll probably toss it. Since I went last time, I'll toss it to you, Rich. Why did you have the Hammer, Erickson Lubin, at number 3?
Look, he had, I think this is the only guy who has, like, Hurd, I had at number 2. He fought Charlo. Lubin fought Charlo, got knocked out in like the first 30 seconds or whatever it is of that fight. But since then, he's bounced back. He's beaten like Terrell Gaucher. That was a huge card, like top to bottom. I think Lara was actually on that card. Maybe he fought Austin Trout. I think Austin Trout was for sure on that card. Another, I think Jermell may have been on that. That was a big card back then. Erickson Lubin has clearly bounced back. Again, one of those process of elimination things. I think he has the ability to knock out everyone I have ranked below him. I had Hurd number 2. I think Hurd gives him a challenge. I'd like to see that fight. And if they ever get it on, I predict Hurd wins. But all it would take is for Lubin to win. And Lubin would be ranked number 2 until he gets a bigger name. And we kind of know who that name is. But I'm kind of glad. I think Lubin deserves to be at number 3. This is exactly where he should be, where about a year ago. I think he barely makes the top 5. Why do you have him at 3?
Oh, I've got him at 3. Look, that I thought he was dominant at this division before he fought Charlo, right? He was moving up. If you want to get to the numbers, he was 20, but I don't remember exactly what he was with Charlo, maybe like 19-0 at the time, but he's 24-1 with 17 knockouts, right? His only loss is to Charlo, and that Charlo was a flash knockdown. It was the perfect punch when he leaned in. If you want to talk about the same style punch, you can go back to Canelo hitting Billy Joe Saunders to where he broke his orbital bone. That's like the exact same punch that dropped Erickson Lubin, and he hasn't been stopped since. And in fact, in his last fight, he knocked out Jason Rosario. That's a big name in this division too. So yeah. He is definitely, I think that this guy still has more to prove. I don't think he's done. I think he is, I could even put him higher than this. Like, he's in the prime of his life right now in terms of fighting. And if I could see a Charlo rematch, a Jermell Charlo rematch, which probably will never happen, but if I could see that, man, ooh, boy, Charlo, you better watch yourself, because that's going to be dangerous for you, 100%. But I've got Lubin up here because I think he is still going to be a force at 154 for at least the next 3 years. I don't know if he's going to move up. I think he's going to dominate. If he can fight Charlo, cool. If he can't, if Charlo leaves, he's probably going to dominate this division moving forward, as far as that goes for it. So,
you know, when you were talking about how the guy is in his prime and he just like had that one loss, and now that he's gotten over it, you know, it reminds me a lot of Canelo and Mayweather. Mayweather got the best of Canelo when he was pre-primed, or just like beginning to enter that prime. And I think that's what happened with that Charlo Lubin fight. I feel like Charlo got the best of him while Lubin was still young. And now that Lubin has like gotten a little older, gained more experience, he's ready to fight Charlo again. And just like you said, we want to see that fight, but we probably won't get it. And if by chance we do get it, I'm sure Charlo would be favored, but don't count Erickson Lubin out. In a rematch like that, do not count Erickson Lubin out. I'd like to move him up, but 3 is where I think he fits. I think, outside of 2 and 1, we all kind of agree. Before we move on, let's do some best of the rest, guys who aren't number 1 and 2 and not 3, 4, and 5. James, I guess just throw some names out there and let's play around with them.
We'll do that, right? So we're just going to pop through the rest. So 6 through 10 real quick. And this, again, is our consensus. So these are the guys that we all had ranked that weren't in the top 5 that ended up being 6 through 10. And in this order, right? So at number 6, we actually had Tony Harrison with 10 points. So just outside. Number 7, J-Rock Julian Williams with 9 points. Real close. Number 8, Danny Swift Garcia at with 8 points. And the reason I have him, well, never mind. Hold on. Let me go keep going for. Number 9 is Jason Rosario, we just mentioned, at number 9 with 8 points as well. The reason I have Danny Swift, the reason I kept him at 8 and 9 is because whatever. I did this part of it. Swift's better than Rosario, so I put him up at 8. All right. And at number 10 with 4 points, rounding out the top 10 for us is actually the Towering Inferno, Sebastian Fundura. So that's who we had. Tony Harrison at 6, Williams, J-Rock at 7, Danny Swift Garcia at 8, Jason Rosario at 9, Sebastian Fundura at 10. So what do you think of those 6 through 10? Is any of those a surprise to you, or does that seem pretty standard as far as what you had for your list?
Well, so at number 6, you said Tony Harrison, and he did not make my top 10, which I like. As soon as you said that, I'm mind blown. I did not have Tony Harrison in there. I don't even know if I want to go through my list, but that's the one. That'd be one that, I think I had him at, if we had, like I said, we can go 15 deep on this one. And I know I had him between 11 and 15. So, and this is a deep division. There's no knock on Tony Harrison. Just because I didn't have him at 6, like, dude's a pretty good fighter. So I have no beef with that.
So just real quick, you had him at 11. So you were right. Me and Raider Live had Tony Harrison at 6. That's why Tony Harrison is at 6 overall in these standings, is because of me and Raider Live. So
I will say, if there's one more guy, Danny Garcia has not fought at 154 yet. We're kind of like foreseeing him. He said he's moving up. My guess is his next fight's going to be at 154. So we had him ranked. I had him where I had him because I think he's a formidable opponent for guys at 154, but you got to prove it before I put you somewhere in the top 5. Had he just pounded somebody, I don't care who it is, I want to see what the guy looks like at 154. And I think I had him at 9, but I have no problem moving Danny Garcia up. I'm a big Danny Garcia fan. I think he gets a lot of flack for some odd reason, but if anything, those are 2 guys I talk about. I just found out Tim Tszyu is related to Costa Tszyu. This is Costa Tszyu's son. I did not know that until about a week ago. And if you guys want to see one of the best knockouts of all time, Costa Tszyu versus Zab Judah. Punch Zab Judah. Zab Judah falls down, stands back up, points to the ref, and falls back down. Costa Tszyu and Zab Judah. Check out that knockout. It's one of the, I don't mean to say funny, but one of the coolest knockouts you'll ever see. All right. Do you want to touch on any? You got to check that out. I wish you could throw a GIF up there. Do you want to touch on anyone before we move on to 2 and 1? Check out Costa Tszyu.
I might have to find that. I did not know that. That's hilarious.
It makes so much sense that Tim Tszyu is getting the credit. He's born into boxing. He's Costa Tszyu's son, and when I think of Costa Tszyu, I think of Zab Judah and that knockout. So yeah, I mentioned Andre Durrell and Uskadegi last week. This week, if we did Jimmy James fight of the week, it would be Costa Tszyu versus Zab Judah. I'll drink to that.
Right on. Yeah, I just wanted to, off this list, there's only one thing I really wanted to touch on, and that was going to be Danny Garcia. We might touch on some other stuff in a little at the end of here, but I keep forgetting, which is terrible. I keep forgetting about Danny Garcia because he's not a bad fighter. He's only lost 3 times in his whole career, right? Like 36-3. Like he is a he is a beast. And those 3 losses,
Yeah.
Errol Spence, Sean Porter, Keith Thurman, all decisions.
And
One,
all like 6'6". I mean, they were all super close. He may have gotten robbed in all 3 of them.
well, definitely got robbed against Thurman, but either way, like this is a dude who I have no problem putting him up. If you want to know on my list, I had Danny Garcia at number 5, right? So this was boom. I think he's a really good fighter. So it's interesting to see. I keep forgetting that he hasn't fought at this division. So that's credit to you for that tidbit. But yeah, why not, right? But I think Danny Garcia is gonna make a name, especially if a Charlo guy goes out. There's not going to be too many big names for here, so he's going to be a guy that's going to be in top fights at 154, 100%. So
awesome. So should we just go on to number 2? Who do we have at number 2? I have a feeling. Lay it on me.
So at number 2, our general consensus here on Brews and Boxing is actually going to be with 26 points. Brian Castano. Brian Castano is number 2. I had Brian Castano at number 2. Rich had Brian Castano at number 4. And Raider Live had Brian Castano at number 1, which brings them all the way up to number 2 on our list, right? So I'm actually going to flip this a little bit because normally we talk about, whoever has him highest. I want to know why you have Brian Castano at number 4, Rich. That's interesting to me, especially given that last fight against Charlo. So take it away.
Yes. So I thought it was a tough fight with Charlo, but when it went 1 through about 4, even 5, because I had Lara at 5. It was a toss-up between Lara and Castano. Castano had a good fight with Charlo. I thought Charlo won the fight. I know you and Raider Live thought Castano won the fight, which is fine. I'm okay with a draw on this. It is what it is. I would have put Lara at number 5, or I'm sorry, at number 4 ahead of Castano because of that Canelo fight, because I thought Lara beat Canelo, but that was so long ago. This is a what have you done for me lately world. So I had Castano at 4. I look at him fighting Lubin. I think Lubin beats him. I think Jarrett Hurd beats him. And my opinion, I had Charlo beating him. Outside of that, Castano whooped up Teixeira. That's all he has on his resume. Go out and beat J-Rock and Rosario and maybe Danny Garcia. Those are 3 guys on the PBC. And if Castano is with the PBC, which I'm not sure, I think he's one of them independent fighters who can go from because I think his fight with Teixeira was on DAZN. Maybe he goes back to DAZN and fights, someone on DAZN. But right now, if you are with the PBC, you got 3 fights you can make. You beat those guys, and I have no problem moving you up a little bit at least. But right now, I don't think he beats Hurd and Lubin, so I had him at 4.
Interesting. That's super interesting. So you want to talk like you want to talk about Castano and who he's got, right? Like he has no losses. He has 2 draws. I definitely think Castano won in the Charlo fight. I'm not upset with the draw because it definitely could have been a draw. I thought he knocked him down in one of the early rounds. We ain't got to go and rehash that. But his other draw is against Erislandy Lara. That's huge as far as I'm concerned. Because that was 2 years ago. So that wasn't recent at all. So I think Castano is a heck of a lot better than people realize. He definitely has flaws in his game, 100%. But this man, just with the fact of what he did against Charlo, for me anyway, and how he really handled Teixeira. He handles larger fighters 5-6 inches taller than him with absolutely no problem whatsoever, which is super. It's odd, right? It's super odd. It's like a Sean Porter type deal where he doesn't, like, the height doesn't matter. It's how do you box? And Castano's got it, right? At least that's how I feel. So I definitely have Castano where he put him at 2. I don't think I'd put him lower. I know what I just said about Lubin and Charlo.
I'm just gonna ask you. I was just gonna throw it to you.
Just said about that, but I think Castano's. I think that would be a man. If I gotta go, I might have to go back. I go back. That is probably a better fight. I want to see Lubin fight Charlo just because I want him to get revenge, but Lubin Castano would probably just be fireworks, man. That would be nonstop action where you would just edge of your seat thriller, right? Thriller. But that's probably all I got to say about that. Man. That's what I got at number 2.
And like in a general sense, I agree with you because I think come around, who knows when we redo this division. It's not going to be till 2022, but by the time we do it, I don't think we're going to see Charlo here. I don't think we're going to see Hurd here. I think it's going to be Lubin and Castano, number 1 and 2. And whenever I think the two of them are headed for a battle 2022. I don't think either one are going to have a choice. They're going to have to duke it out because everybody else is going to move out of that division. They are going to be the consensus 1s and 2s across every website, Ring Magazine, ESPN, you name it. They're going to be number 1 and 2. They're going to get it on next year. I have no doubt about that. And I'm excited for it. I think you're right. That's going to make a better fight than probably the Charlo and Lubin. So do we move on to number 1? Anything to add before we move on to drum roll, please?
No, let's just go, right?
All right, let's bring it on.
If you guys haven't guessed it yet, our number 1 consensus pick by a landslide, by a little bit, is going to be Jermell Charlo. Sorry, Jermell Charlo. I can't even believe I just messed that up. Jermell Charlo with 29 points. Raider Live had Jermell at number 2. James and Rich, we both had Jermell Charlo at number 1. Rich, I'll probably let you just take it away. I don't have much to say about this at all. We just touched base on this before. I still think he's number 1 in the division, but let's hear where you got him.
Yeah, I mean, he beat Rosario with that shot. Beat Rosario. He beat Austin Trout, who knows how long ago. Erickson Lubin's the big one. He beat, even going way back when, he beat Gabe Rosado. I mean, the dude is taking on all comers. And his only loss to Harrison was eventually avenged. And even in that loss, I thought it was about a 6-6. James, you were at my place watching it. I was pretty wasted. I was like talking. I don't even remember watching that fight, but I remember thinking Tony Harrison is getting the best of him. But this is boxing. They're going to give it to Charlo. But the right guy won that fight. That first fight, I got to say, I wasn't paying close attention, but from what I saw, I thought Harrison was winning. Harrison got the nod. I thought he deserved it. But Charlo learned, and, if that was like a 18-round fight, I don't know how to put it, but there was a rematch. Charlo knocked him out in the rematch. It wasn't even close. Charlo at number 1 for me.
Fair enough. He knocked him out in the rematch in the 11th round, so it did go very far into the thing. But yes, Tony Harrison definitely beat Charlo the first time. He just played down to his opponents. I think that's, if there's any knock that I have on Charlo, is he literally plays down to his opponents. Right? He doesn't. You know what he gives. You know what he can do, and sometimes he just doesn't show up. Right? I don't know if it's a mental thing or what, but either way, I mean, I don't have too much else to say about that. 34-1-1, 1 draw, lost that one time to Harrison, which he avenged. He's still number 1 in this division right now, even with my opinion with Castano beating him. If it would have been official, probably would have flipped it, but not official. So until you take down the Lion, it's kind of how it rolls, right?
Yeah, even if I don't know how much, I know we're running out of time here, but like I didn't carefully or closely score the Charlo Castano fight. I based my opinion off of Steve Farhood's scorecard. And again, Steve, to recap, Steve Farhood had the fight scored at 114, a draw, with Castano winning the first round. In my book, I had Charlo winning the first round, so I would have it 115, 113. So, maybe Farhood had a round wrong somewhere in there, but I thought it was a close fight. I'm not mad at a draw. I wouldn't even be mad at Castano victory. Just like you said, had that decision been reversed, maybe I would have Castano at number 1. Definitely not at number 4.
Fair enough.
All right, James. I think we've spent about close to an hour together. I'm sure you're as sick of me as I'm sick of you. Let's have a little drink and move on with the show. Unless you got anything to add.
One thing, real quick. All right, one thing, real quick. So there's only 4. There's 4 names that weren't on those top 10. I just want to touch real quick. I'm talking like 30 seconds on these guys, right? So number 11 overall consensus, we had Tim Tszyu, who you already stated. At number 12, we had Israel Madrimov, the Dream. Number 13, Magomed Karabov. And number 14, which you were the only one who had him ranked, was Terrell Gusha. That was not how I say his name. What?
Goucher.
Way off. I was way
or
off.
Goucher, one of the two. Yeah.
So either way, like, I guess for me, I just want to touch base real quick because you actually had Israel Madrimov, the Dream, the guy that I've been scouting for a while. You had him in the top 10. I want to know real quick because I didn't. I had him at 12. I want to know why do you have him in the top 10 given he's only 7-0 with 5 knockouts?
Because he has every tool as advertised. When you had him ranked way back when, I thought you were a little not crazy, but maybe you were hung up on someone who was maybe getting all hype, maybe all, I hate the steak sizzle thing, but he may have been all sizzle. But when I watched him fight, maybe a month later, that guy has got real skills. He has defense, he has offense, he has power, and he has no fear. I don't think he's afraid to get hit in the face, and he will hit you right back with all that he's got. I think he can beat a lot of these guys, maybe even every single one of them. I had him at 8 because he hasn't fought anyone. He hasn't really beaten a big name. So until you step into the ring with a very high-ranked top contender, that's where I'm going to put you. And let me tell you, I don't think other websites are giving him the credit he deserves. And I think it's because he doesn't have the big names on his record yet. Does that make sense?
100%, man. He hasn't fought anybody. His last fight, we can even talk about. I mean, we talked about that in a later show that it was, he wasn't a knockdown, right? All that mumbo jumbo and all that crap. But yeah, I mean, I still think I agree with that. Hardcore. I was just curious because I had him lower and you had him higher, and I was kind of super surprised that you had him in the top 10. So I really wanted to know why you had him in the top 10.
Yeah, he'll probably be in the top 5 2022 when this division has shuffled around. He'll be in this division for the next couple years, I think.
Right on. Yeah, I'm gonna guess real quick. Last thing, I think Sebastian Fundora. I know we had him at number 10. I know he wasn't on our outcast board, but I think the Towering Inferno, if he stays at 154, is going to be a fighter that is a difficult fight for a lot of people. I don't think he's going to stay at this weight class. I think he's going to end up moving. He's just too tall. He's like 6'4" at 154, which is ridiculous. It doesn't make any sense. So he's going to have to move up to 160 and be dominant at some of these other weights. But I think that Fundora, if he stays here, is going to be trouble for almost anyone in this division as far as that goes. But I just want to touch base on 2 future stars to watch for: Sebastian Fundora, Israel Madrimov. Those are 2 big names. Wait for it. They are going to increase in the next couple of years. You heard it here, folks, on Brews and Boxing.
I will drink to that, man. Good call.